Entering the Pat Mayo Experience.
Pat Mayo Experience. Pat Mayo Experience. Pat Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, presented by DraftKings. Let's do it. Week 1, DraftKings pricing. First look, is the pricing soft? Is the pricing tight? Where are the soft spots? We're still weeks away, so, injuries are going to happen and stuff's going to change. But hey, we still need to talk about it right now because people need to know. I need to know. Adam Levitan will be joining me in a second, so remember to smash the like button for the episode. Give me your favorite value play down in the comment section. Sub to Mayo Media Network. Sub to the free newsletter down in the description. And the next time that you see us on the NFL show, I should have the Week 1 PME Listeners League link available. It's not available as of yet. We're still doing golf for another few days, and then boom, into NFL season, and we'll try to fill that. We're hoping to get $100K in rake-free guaranteed money, so tune back in. Find the link in next week's show. We got more football coming. The top 150 with Meany and Cuss coming on Sunday. Me, Cuss, and Feinberg finishing our rankings of the QBs on Thursday. Sealy will be back. My guy John Legazia has a cool new way of breaking. That's not a cool new way. It's just an interesting way of looking at spreads versus money lines and what you're actually paying per point on a spread. I thought it was pretty fascinating. We're going to run a season-long trial to see if it actually yields results or not, because we don't know. It's all in hypothesis mode right now. But I thought it'd be a cool concept for a show as we'll kind of check back in on it every single week. And if you want to run your projections right now at runthesims.com, they're all up for week 1 for the preseason, all the preseason notes. Runthesims.com/Mayo will get you 10% off. Prices going up not April. It probably would be going up in April, but August 15th. Get in before that. Get an extra 10% off at runthesims.com. No content on the site, just tools, betting, daily fantasy, completely customizable. Highly suggest that you go check that out. Or you can use code ETR5 at establishtheRun.com and get all of Adam Levitan's great work along with everyone else who was good at DraftKings. So you should probably do that too.
Exactly. Thanks for the promo. Appreciate it, buddy. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm so glad that you, Bales, and Pete are doing the show again. I needed one more podcast to get me through the week, and that's it. It's fantastic to have it back.
You're referring to the very serious Three Donkeys podcast where me, Bales, and Peter come into a show with basically no plan whatsoever. And just talk about life and play these ridiculous lotting games. So yeah, it's fun for sure.
So basically your show prep is the same for my show prep every show.
Exactly. We took inspiration from having no plans whatsoever and just winging it. Exactly.
Yeah. When no one feels, this is not great for you guys because people do hold you accountable. They hold Evan accountable. No one holds me accountable because they just assume I'm making the worst possible decisions. They're like, oh, that's just entertainment. Don't worry about his picks. So now I don't need to prep anymore. It's fantastic news.
Perfect. Yeah, for sure. No, Three Donkeys is fun, but if anybody actually is trying trying to win for DraftKings or season long, just our regular podcast Established Run is totally free, and I would check that out for sure.
Yeah, we get Herzig, you got Leon. I've been picking off all the ETR guys to be on my show to lend me some credibility, so that's been very nice. And now you're on as well. But I will say, I actually won money playing NFL DraftKings last year, and that was because of just blindly following Run the Sims. It made me... when did you start going through and using because I know I used to really like to hand build. I know that you like still to hand build main lineups and stuff like that. But when you're using these optimizers and these tools, I found it made me stop making the stupid decisions that I would make every week when I just started blindly trusting it.
I still think that I prefer to hand build. So, I'll make somewhere between 6 and 10 lineups each week by hand. And because football is weekly, much like golf, which by the way, I've gotten into and I absolutely love playing DFS golf now, but much like golf, it's once a week. If you can't find the time to sit down and really think hard to make 6 to 10 really good lineups each week, maybe DraftKings is not for you. I feel like that's not a huge ask. I do think that if you're good at using optimizers and stuff like that, then ramming in 150, I guess is fine. But I think people just have such high expectations when you ram in 150 and it's just not realistic. The attitude that, I'll just put in 150 and how can I lose? I'll have something bubble up to the top is just so wrong because people are using bad projections. People are using bad rules. People are using bad software. There's just so much out there that I think is dangerous for people who are ramming in 150. So I still think it's the most fun to hand build yourself. And I actually think that your expectation is higher if you're good at making lineups. So that's kind of my spiel on it.
I still do for the PME. There's the 3 spots. So I hand build all 3 of those lineups. And when I go into like the $200, the $100, usually single entries, then I'm using my hand built lineup in those. But when I'm entering like the 20 max or whatever it is, I'll just spit out like another 15 and be like, and they always just inevitably end up being better than the lineups that I build anyway. So at least I've turned the corner that way where I'm not building like, because the problem was like I tried to build like 50 lineups by hand or 20 lineups by hand. And then I would just essentially make the same lineup with like 2 changes in it. I'm like, if this goes wrong, this is horrible.
Well, first of all, I'm well aware of the PME contest. You're looking at the ultimate grinder. I would never miss a no rate contest. So I'm always in the PME 3 max during the NFL season for sure. I think people should think about their hand built lineups through stacks. Like I want X number of Chiefs stacks this week. I want X number of Bills stacks this week, and mix it up like that instead of otherwise you run into a lot of problems where you get a lot of the same lineups like you mentioned. So I like to think of it through stacks. Hey, here's my pool of stacks for the week, and then start building from there.
Do you how many like stacks do you really go with? Like when you are building like, let's say 5 to 10 hand built lineups, higher stakes, smaller tournaments. And I really think that the biggest change for me last year was proper tournament selection versus just like, hey, this one has $1 million up top. Let's play this one. And I was like, you know what? I'm doing pretty good at these like $200 39-man single entries. Like I'm actually like turning a profit in these. Maybe I'll just play those instead of just like pissing my money away. So that has really helped. I'll have Tambo on in probably like 2 weeks. We'll break down all of that because that even in golf, like he kind of hit on that, and it really clicked for me when he talked about in golf because I was having good golf scores, but I wasn't fucking winning anything. And I was like, what am I doing wrong? Do I need to play like $4,000 a week? He's like, no, you need to pick better fucking tournaments, you idiot. Right.
Yeah. I mean, I write the article every year about what contest I would play or what contest you should be in if you want to play 100 a week, 500 a week, 1,000 a week, whatever. The same principle applies. I don't play really very much in the DraftKings Millie Maker, like the $20 or the $5 or whatever. I'm exclusively looking for higher stakes, lower rake, smaller field stuff because the way I play, like I'm not going to hit the absolute stone cold nuts. It's really unlikely. So in those huge tournaments, you actually need the absolute stone cold nuts. Whereas in some of these smaller tournaments, you can have a meh spot. And, like the whole concept of double stacking, I'm not even sure. And we've done a lot of work on this, double stacking in the Millie Maker is dangerous because you need both the wide receivers to go off. Right. And maybe that's fine because the tournament is so big. You need your quarterback to throw for like 400 yards and 4 touchdowns anyways. But in a smaller field, if you double stack, well, one guy could just be okay. And one of your wide receivers could go off, and that's still good enough to win the tournament, So, I think that it's the most easiest way to improve your ROI immediately is understanding contest selection. Like just immediately you can boost your ROI 10, 20, 30% without even knowing anything more about football or DFS. Literally just pick better contests. Like that should be step one for everybody. It's
hard to do though, because I get how, because I'm a victim of it too, just getting sucked into, oh man, if this was, and it's funny because I don't have the FOMO. Because someone once asked me, because I had a lineup, I think it was in the PME, and I didn't play it in the Millionaire Maker, and it was like second in my contest, and it would have been like top 10 in the Millionaire Maker. Just the guy who won like blew everything out. But I didn't have it in the Millionaire Maker. It's like, are you pissed you didn't have it in there? I was like, not really, because I wasn't playing in that tournament. Like, yeah, it sucks, but that means I would have been wasting $3,000 every week entering this tournament with the amount of lineups that I was playing, and that was just never on the table for me. So what am I pissed about?
Exactly. Yeah, I got second in that FanDuel fan championship last year for $250K, and if I would have put it in their $5 entry, I would have won another $500K. But I never really sweated it because I never play that tournament anyways, right? And like, yeah, it's only $5. Maybe I should have put the team in there, et cetera, et cetera. But I do think like in the long run, it's probably better just to not play those super large field lottos. But yeah, obviously it's painful. $500K mistake there on the quote unquote mistake there on the $5.
Yeah, well, ETR is doing so well. You don't even need the $500K anymore, man.
Yeah. Who needs another $500,000? Who cares?
Well, I always wondered this because it's not a problem. It's a great quote unquote problem to have. But once a site gets so big and like everyone's following you or everyone's following Dink or Evan or Leone or whoever it might be, do you guys ever like experience a problem? Because we had this for like golf, because so many people were subbed to our site that like it kept like, no matter like kind of how you rigged it, it would give you the right plays, like the right plays of here are who projects out the best that week. But once you get to a tipping point, everyone's like kind of on those plays. Like, how do you navigate that? Or do you just have to make your own custom adjustments?
So we have a model, and then we add manual adjustments to our ownership projections. And obviously, like, we weight the ownership projections based on what other people are doing, but we weight ourselves the heaviest because we think we have the biggest impact on the market. So once you understand what the field is going to do, and yes, we are weighting the field, you can still find, I mean, incredible plays that the field won't be on for whatever reason. And so like last year, you know, in that tournament I was talking about that I won, we had Rex Burkhead when the Texans against the Chargers projected as like the third best running back value for the week. He comes in at 2% owned because no one wants to click Rex Burkhead, right? And so there's stuff like that all the time. I also really encourage people to think about cumulative ownership and product ownership. In other words, multiply your ownership together, or at least add your ownership together, and be sure it's within levels that are acceptable. And like the lower, obviously, the better. So yeah, always the field is reacting to what we say, but for tournaments, you know, there are still plays and tons of them and constructions that other people aren't doing. And Leone does this every week in the Thunderdome. I mean, Leone won so much in the Thunderdome last year just by making small pivots. You know, everybody plays ETR's best play. Well, what about ETR's second best play at wide receiver or third best play at wide receiver? What about somebody who's not in the cash pool for that week? In the Thunderdome, if you're not in the cash pool, like these guys are like unowned. So Leone's going into the Thunderdome with, you know, a guy who projects well, maybe our fourth, fifth, sixth best value. And he gets him at like the only guy in the entire field, in the entire Thunderdome, who has them. All it takes is the chalk to fail and his guy to play reasonably, and he's shipping. So, you know, I hear you, but in tournaments especially, there's always a pivot. I think the bigger issue is in cash games, and that's where I try to be really careful about who I'm playing, because yeah, you know, cash games have gotten to the point where most people you're playing, not everyone, but most people you're playing have some semblance of who the best plays are.
Yeah, I would think that in between all of the different sites out there, that whatever the optimal is for cash games, that if you stuck to single entry, double ups and 50-50s, you might have a better shot of actually winning, because if a whole bunch of roto grinders people or ETR people are all playing like the same 7-ish guys because they project out so well, the right plays, that they can throw that lineup in 20 times. So now instead of 20 people that you're playing against, it's 20 times 20, and it's not good if you're not on that train.
Buddy, I haven't played a multi-entry double up since like 2015. I mean, you have to be, you know, if you're thinking about contest selection, you know, for me, for cash, I get so much good head-to-head action because people want to play Adam Levitan, and like they're like, oh, Adam, you know, he's a quote unquote celebrity. He doesn't know anything. They're not subscribed to ETR. I'll play him. I get incredible high stakes action at head to head. I'm not sure everybody gets that, but I do think that at low stakes, like you can, if you only want to play maybe, you know, $200, $300 a week, you can sell that much in head to head action, and it will be good action at, you know, $1, $2, $3, $5, $10 levels. For sure. Single entry double ups for sure. Game selecting 3-mans, you know, see who's in those 3-mans before you register and find those. And yeah, all this is part of the grind, man. You know, I don't necessarily recommend this grind to everyone. I am like a sick fuck who like can't help but grind every edge. I just can't stop, but and it's not as fun as just like throwing some teams in the Millie Maker. And, you know, it always goes back to what your goals are. If your goals are to grind your cock off like me and try to grind out every edge, that's one thing. If you're here just to have fun and play the Millie Maker, that's fine too. I would not like discourage people from playing the Millie Maker if they're just looking to have fun. I'm more try to speak to people who are actually trying to grind out kind of an edge for themselves.
Well, that works kind of in conjunction with, it seems like you're grinding the NFL training camp news and preseason news so hard. And as we've talked about, you know, like in the past, like even when I would have Cody on the show to talk about preseason stuff, like there's such an edge in getting those preseason notes and playing time because people just aren't looking. And if you can find, oh yeah, Washington said this guy's going to play all 4 quarters because they want to see him. It's like, well, automatically use that guy because he's going to be on the field. And so there's the one edge for preseason DFS. And I know Justin has all of his notes up as a part of the package at Run the Sims on each player, projected playing time, that kind of thing, so you can try to build your lineups. Worked out really well for the preseason game or the Hall of Fame game. We'll see how it translates into week 1. But you've just been grinding news over and over. What have you know? Like, what are some like key takeaways so far? Because like as we're speaking right now, this is coming out tomorrow morning. So like Becton gets hurt in practice. No idea how serious that is. Christian Kirk leaves the field. It seems like he's going to be okay. But what are some playing time things that you've seen so far? Like the Raiders backfield, people fucking losing their minds because Josh Jacobs was in for 2 series in the Hall of Fame. So, well, he can't be any good. He's playing. It's like, it's the weirdest thing of like overreaction to these games that don't matter. Maybe it's a new coach. He wanted to see the guy in the offense. Who knows?
So to me, it's very clear. It's these nonsense reports from beat writers. Oh, this guy looks great. Beat writers are horrible evaluators of talent. I mean, horrible. They're like all this stuff like, oh, this guy, no one can stop him. This running back looks so explosive. Like that is just all nonsense. We can ignore it. What we should not be ignoring is stuff like Kenny Gainwell is getting half the reps with the first team. What we should not be ignoring is, Benjamin is taking pass down work away from James Conner with the first string in practices. In other words, how players are going to be used, not how good some beat writer thinks they are at football. Because honestly, like the teams are the talent evaluators. I don't really get into talent evaluation at all. But if a team thinks Romeo Doubs is good enough to start opposite Alan Lazard, well, why do I need a talent evaluation, for DFS? I may need it for Dynasty because he may flame out. But for DFS, all I want to know is, hey, Romeo Doubs is starting across from Alan Lazard in week 1. And I actually don't think that's going to happen, but I was just trying to come up with an example. And so that, to me, that's the important stuff. Where are guys being used? Are they being used with the first string? Not, he caught his 3rd touchdown pass of practice today. Like it would be impossible for me to care less. Go ahead.
I have been on, like, I think you and I, and there's a select few of us who've always kind of been on that idea. It's like, why do I care if he's the best player in the world if no one throws him the ball? How does that help me?
Yeah.
That trying to figure out who is going to be on the field is essentially the most valuable part of fantasy football and trying to do your projections. And like, I feel like it's a need to discover someone who is like, and maybe they're super talented. Like it was remember for years, everyone drafted Jermichael Finley because he caught the ball with the 2 balls at once. It's like, oh my God, what talent. It's like, well, the Packers don't really use a tight end. Like at least during that era, it's like, well, what do we expect here? That he might catch 8 touchdowns and have 10 catches this year? Like who is that helping? No one. That's just taking it away from the guys that you want.
There's like a whole market of people who love to talk about what NFL teams should do. Oh, if only the Vikings threw it more on 1st and 10 instead of ran it up the middle, they'd be so much better. Like, who cares? Like, I don't care what they should do. I am in the business of trying to figure out what they will do. And so, yeah, I think the point is well taken. I think people are getting there for sure. You asked about stuff I've noticed in camp. One that I wanted to mention that before we lose it is the Giants stuff with Wan'Dale Robinson. It just seems like the 3 wide receiver set is locked with Wan'Dale in the Cole Beasley role, Kadarius Toney in the Steph Diggs role, and Kenny Golladay in that other opposite outside role that they've kind of rotated guys through in kind of the Gabe Davis role. And so, yeah, with Brian Daboll there, I thought that was just at least worth noting that those 3 guys seem really locked into those roles. So yeah, we can talk more about Giant stuff for sure when we get to the week 1, but I just wanted to put that one out there.
Have you ran any like simulations week 1 or anything like that? Because I just did. I went and looked at it, and apparently, we will be talking about the Giants because apparently they're the best values on the board.
Yeah, we can talk about that. I have not run or made any lineups for week 1 yet. I mean, we're so far out, and there's going to be so much that happens between now and week 1. We're talking about a full month of guys to get hurt and guys to change their spot on the depth chart, et cetera, et cetera. So no, I have not done anything yet, but for sure, I mean, you don't have to be rocket science to see that the Giants pricing on DraftKings for week 1 sticks out like a sore thumb. Yeah,
Wendell is the min. He's $3K at wide receiver. There are 2 guys I did want to ask you about. What do you see with Tony Pollard? Like, is he actually going to get these slot snaps?
So almost always every year, teams, reporters, coaches like to say, well, this year we're going to use 2 running backs on the field at the same time. It almost never happens. Never. Like literally, it's the biggest crock of shit that anyone puts out every single offseason. Tony Pollard case is unique, and I don't like to predict outliers, but Tony Pollard is such an excellent receiver, and the Cowboys lost Amari Cooper, and Michael Gallup is not going to play week 1 and probably beyond, and they just lost James Washington. And so like you start getting into this spot where you can maybe see it that they actually use Tony Pollard as a receiver more this year. My bigger take on Tony Pollard is that the Cowboys are just an okay team now, not necessarily a good team. And if they get off to a 1-3 or 1-4 start and Zeke is lumbering around out there averaging 3.8 yards per carry, like they're going to need to play Tony Pollard more. Like he's so explosive. And so I think Zeke in round 4 and you pray that he's okay and he runs for 12 touchdowns is like not the worst thing in the world. I don't take him there, but I think there's at least some room for both Pollard and Zeke to profit at their ADPs. It's not a great bet, but I think it's at least possible.
I was looking at some draft results this morning. I see Isaiah Pacheco is going inside the top 100 now, as high as pick number 91. That sounds fun.
Wait, that can't be right.
Yeah, it was I looked at some of the DraftKings best ball this morning. Pick number 91.
I mean, I like Isaiah Pacheco. I'm not convinced he's even going to make the team. And if he does, I think he'll play a lot on special teams to start. I think there's a chance that Ronald Jones gets cut and they go with CEH, McKinnon, and Pacheco. But yeah, I mean, to me, Pacheco is like a 18th round best ball pick and hope for the best. That seems pretty crazy to me. But yeah, the best ball stuff on DraftKings is, I mean, people are doing some wild shit out there. That's for sure.
What do you like best ball? Because I weirdly can't stand it. I just
really,
yeah, because I'm not going to draft 200 teams. Like I get the concept of doing. Maybe it's because I'm so enamored with golf during the time when everyone is like super like grinding best ball. But I'm not going to grind as hard as those people to find the edges and keep up to date with it, because I'm trying to keep up to date on golf and do it that way. And by the time it gets to like August, like I'm thinking about drafting like a high stakes season long team or playing against my friends, and then really getting settled into like betting and DraftKings for the year. It's just a weird. It's not a blind spot because I still do play because I do the content on it. I want to at least know what I'm talking about when I'm doing the drafts, but I'm not playing 150 lineups, and I just feel like that puts me at such a disadvantage.
Yeah, I don't think it puts you at a disadvantage, but I'd say that the expected ROI, if you're like looking to grind for money, the expected ROI on each, $5 DraftKings best ball or each $25 underdog, like if you're making more than 10, 15, 20% on that on your buy-in, I'd be surprised. So I don't do it from a money-making perspective. I draft best ball teams, A, because drafting fantasy football teams is so much fucking fun, and B, it keeps me sharp for the regular season. In other words, like I'm constantly understanding what the market thinks of guys, how the market is changing, how I think of guys when I'm on the clock. Do I want to take this guy or that guy? And so it helps, to get me ready for DFS season. Obviously, I'm going to play a fraction of entries in best ball compared to what I will play in week 1 in DFS. And so like, again, it's not a money-making thing for me. I just think it's really, 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 really good prep for the regular season for any season-long league you have. And it's fun. I think drafts are fun. But yeah, ROI on your time it's total dust. I mean, I don't really have like 45 minutes to grind out $2 of EV,
Well, how similar are best ball drafts, do you think, that once we get to actual season-long draft season, like more casual? I mean, you can have your high-stakes stuff. You can have like your big-time season-long fantasy football league. The majority of people drafting are playing with their 11 other buddies. I mean, if they're lucky to have that many friends. But at the same time, like best ball drafts aren't necessarily a complete corollary. I think you'll get very similar decisions maybe in certain price ranges where you can go, but obviously quarterbacks are going to go way higher in best ball and stacking. Like in a season-long league, are you really going to like full stack an offense in terms of like, oh, I need to get Mahomes and I need to get Juju and I need to get whoever else now, Sky Moore and Travis Kelce, where you need to do that in best ball to really correlate all your lives? Do you really want to do that in season long?
No. And so it's a good point for sure. Casual leagues are going to be way, way, way different than the stuff you see in best ball. But I do think that, especially on underdog, the draft rooms are sharp enough to like really test you. And so you see a ton of sharp people are taking X player at 40th overall. In your home league, he might go 60th overall, and that's a smash. Like you just know it is. And like I think of examples like Gabe Davis. I mean, Gabe Davis goes like 40th or 42nd overall, somewhere in that range in these best ball stuff. He's not going to go there with like 11 of your boys and like Tom from accounting and like it's just nobody's going to take him. Like Travis Etienne, nobody's going to take a committee Jaguar, in round 3 or round 2 or something like that in your casual league, but that's where he goes in sharper drafts. So I always think it's good to practice against sharper drafts because it's going to look like, a total layup when you play against your buddies from home. So that's the way I would think about it. The correlation points are well taken. I would not be going out of my way to stack. I think stacking is plus EV in your season-long leagues, but it's certainly not necessary, and I wouldn't go out of my way to do it.
No, I do think stacking, it's not absolutely necessary, but it's usually better. I feel like in season-long leagues, it's usually better off with like one guy, maybe two, not the entire team, because you only have, the guy who's scoring, when Mecole Hardman scores his 90-yard touchdown on your bench, it doesn't do you any fucking good.
Yeah, and when you're only playing against 11 other people, correlation is not going to be as impactful as it will when you're playing against 400,000 other people. Like, obviously, like the only way to win, not the only way, but the likeliest way to give yourself a chance to win these huge tournaments, and we see it in DFS, obviously, is by correlating and stacking. So you limit the number of things you need to get right. When you're only playing against 11 other people, like, even in DFS, if I think I'm playing against 11 other dolts, I'll just like play the best team and not worry about correlation.
I did want to talk to you about the KC offense before we dig into week one, because I think Leone and I made the Juju bet. Like, I just don't see it with Juju. Like, that's me projecting my bias, and I think this guy might be absolute toast. That even with Patrick, like the only reason that, like, if you put him with any other quarterback in the league right now, maybe Josh Allen aside, you'd be like, yeah, there's no way I'm drafting Juju. But now everyone wants Juju. Like, why would you take him at double the cost of essentially every other Kansas City receiver? Is he that much better than Sky Moore or MVS or Hardman or whoever? I don't think so, is he?
Man, I'm curious why you think Juju is done, I guess. He's only 25 years old, and he was playing with like the worst quarterback in the NFL. And definitely bottom three. I mean, Ben was so bad the last 2 years. So I guess I'd be curious why you think Juju could be done from just like a talent perspective.
He seems a lot slower. Like, there's the reason that he's running route. I feel like there's a reason that he's running routes so much closer to the line of scrimmage than he was at least earlier in his career. And I feel like a lot of the stuff that he does well, Travis Kelce does way better.
Yeah. So Patrick Mahomes has had a really high target rate at the slot throughout his career. And some of that is Travis Kelce, but also to wide receivers. I also think there's going to be some like rotation among the outside receivers between MVS and Sky and Mecole Hardman, whereas the slot guy to me is very clearly Juju Smith-Schuster. So if you're going to play every snap in a spot where Patrick Mahomes likes to throw the ball, and I guess I blame more of Juju's struggles on Ben's woes. Why was Juju so close to the line of scrimmage? Because Ben couldn't throw the ball more than 5 yards, and so their offensive line was so bad, he just had to get it out so quickly. So yeah, I hear you. I'm just not ready to give up on Juju. I mean, it wasn't like maybe 2 or 3 years ago he was the number one dynasty player. I mean, people were taking him number one overall in dynasty redraft leagues. Were they taking Juju Smith-Schuster? He's so young and so productive at a young age. I just don't think that he's fallen off the cliff like that. And I like the way his role is this year. We know they're going to be so pass heavy. They'll probably lead the league in pass rate over expectation, probably right there with the Bucs and the Bills. So I hear you. It's been scary, but if Juju had been like even reasonably good the last couple of years, he'd be going in the 20s or 30s. You can get him in the 50s and 60s now, I think, pretty comfortably. And maybe the hype on him is coming up a bit, but yeah, I still do like taking him. So yeah, I'm happy to book another bet there if you're looking for more anti-Juju action.
Yeah, well, I have a bet with Herzig. I have a bet with Leone. I don't know if they're both on Juju. I have Cooks versus a whole bunch of guys. Why does everyone at ETR hate Brendan Cooks?
I actually like Brandon Cooks. I actually think Davis Mills is one of the most underrated. Doesn't mean he's good, but underrated. And people think he's total dust. He's not. Like, Davis Mills can play, and Pep Hamilton, I think, is one of the best, most underrated offensive coordinators, offensive schemers in the league. And so I do like Brandon Cooks. I think his price got away from us a little bit, but when he goes in like round 5, 6 or so, I'm fine with Brandon Cooks. I also take a ton of Nico Collins late. Also, because I think, Davis Mills has a chance to be good, and Nico is going to be out there for every snap as kind of a big downfield threat. So yeah, people are never going to be excited about Brandon Cooks due to concussion history, age. He plays for the Texans, but I think he'll be fine.
Do you have a beat on their backfield at all? Do you think it's going to be a committee, or do you think that Damon Pierce is just going to be like, hey, after we it might be a split for like the first few weeks? Because that's like what you were talking about with the training camp news, because it keeps just fucking popping up on my timeline. Pierce looks great. Pierce looks more explosive. Like, he should, as like a 21-year-old dude, he should look more explosive than Rex Burkhead. Like, that should be a good.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, when you compare Dameon Pierce to Rex Burkhead, who, I like Rex Burkhead. I'll love him forever for playing that game against the Chargers the way he did. and compare him against Marlon Mack, who's coming off of an Achilles tear, of course, Dameon Pierce is going to look great. I don't have a great talent read on Dameon Pierce. I do think that Rex Burkhead and Marlon Mack will be left in the dust sooner rather than later. I don't think it'll be in September, though. And like, I think people, especially on Twitter and people and casual leagues, people place way too much of emphasis on week one roll. In other words, like all the money in all fantasy leagues, especially in DraftKings Best Ball and Underdog Best Ball and FFPC, that's all like in the playoffs, right? But even in your home league, almost all the money is likely at the end of the year. Why do we care so much about the split between Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon in week one? Why do we care so much about the split between Dameon Pierce and Marlon Mack and Rex Burkhead in week one, when really I want to know how it's going to be in October, November, December? And so, yeah, my bet would be big time on Dameon Pierce to be the guy by winning time. And really that's what I care about. So yeah, I like Dameon Pierce. He's one of my favorite flyers. I'll have an article up soon on my favorite flyers guys I like to take after round 10, and Dameon Pierce will for sure be in there.
Well, I don't know if that's free or if that's paywall, but if it's paywall, you can use ETR5 and get yourself that discount at establishtherun.com. Easy stuff. Last one, first pick overall.
Yeah, easy. I mean,
it's
is it really a debate?
It's McCaffrey.
It's yeah.
Okay.
You know, a lot of people think they can predict injuries, and it's really hard. And if you want to tell me, hey, you know, guys first year back from an ACL tear, they're slow to come back. Guys first year back from an Achilles tear, they look like Cam Akers did in the playoffs last year. You can tell me all that. Guys who have like sprained their ankle or pulled a hamstring or whatever, it could recur. Christian McCaffrey has had like a full year off to get his body right. And is he likely to get hurt this year? Yes, because he plays fucking running back in the NFL. Of course he's likely to get hurt, just like every other running back in the NFL is likely to get hurt this year. I do not think Christian McCaffrey is more likely to get hurt than any other running back this year. And if he stays healthy, if every running back in the league stays healthy this year, Christian McCaffrey will outscore all of them by like 50 points, maybe more, 100 points. His role is so outrageous, like so ridiculous, his pass catching role. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't draft with multiple condoms on. I think you guys know that. I draft as if I'm right. And so Christian McCaffrey to me is an absolute no-brainer at first overall. His role is just so much better than Jonathan Taylor's. It's like not even close.
DraftKings Week 1 pricing is out. Once again, if you go to runthesims.com/Mayo, you get that discount. Check out the optimizer, customize it around. It's early, so you probably don't need to make your lineups right now. But hey, it's funny because you said you get bored. I get bored with best ball, and you like doing it because drafting is so much fun. Like I would rather just like, by the time like the Thursday comes around or the Sunday comes around, that I could potentially have made 150 hand-built lineups, just because I like going in for week one and like messing around with that, just so I don't have to be committed to it. And like, it's not so much that, obviously there's no commitment beyond doing the draft and best ball, but like I would start paying attention to it in like week 4 and week 5. And I just feel like I don't need that stress in my life, and I can move on.
I'll tell you the best thing when it's like 1:30 p.m. Eastern on Sunday and all your DK teams are already dead and you get to start checking the best ball teams. That's where the best ball sweat comes into play. It's like, well, I'm getting buried in DFS, but at least I can check my best ball teams. Maybe there's something good going on there.
Oh, before we get into it, in terms of optimizers and projections, how good do you find that like median projections? I know that a lot of people are going to customize it to like upside projections with correlation when they're building their lineups. But as it pertains to like prop betting, how good are projection systems that just be like, I know that the median numbers usually are right around where the number is going to be set, because that's how the books actually make their lines a lot of the time. But in terms of props, like if you find a median projection that's way off what the prop is, do you guys just hammer that?
Oh man, I mean, we've been just murdering on props. I mean, and yeah, I know what you're saying, that it seems easy, but like DraftKings is going to put out, or they have been putting out, literally 1,000, 2,000 markets for both NFL and NBA on player props the last year and a half. And so they only need to get, and they're decent at it, honestly. Like but they only need to get 10 or 20 of them wrong out of 1,000 or 2,000 for us to absolutely murder them. And that's just like what we've been doing. I mean, we just have a system in the back end. And I think our projections are by far the best and way better than whatever DraftKings is using for their projections. So, you know, we just have a thing in our back end where we compare our projection to DraftKings lines. We add in some context. You think about median versus mean. And, you know, if something is off and we feel good about our projection, we double check our projection. I mean, yeah, it's like we're going to hit 60, 65 It's like, and that's not, we're not like geniuses for this. Again, like when they have to put up 2,000 lines and they're putting up lines on Pat Fryermuth and the number 4 wide receiver for the Packers and stuff like that, like we're just going to kill them. Like we're just going to kill them. And they know that it's a marketing expense for them. But yeah, it's like, if you're a fantasy player who wants to win in sports betting, I'd be hard pressed to think that you can win in anything except for props. I don't try to win in sides. I don't try to win in totals. We just like pick off 10, 20, 30 props a week. And more than that our basketball guys just murdered this year too in props. And yeah, it's just the best. Props are just the best, man. It really is.
Well, it's probably tough for you if there's only 10 or 20 good ones a week, because you can even limited to $5 now.
Yeah, well, part of the game is getting accounts, and I would never encourage anyone to violate the terms of service, but getting clean accounts and finding ways to bet is part of the game. Winning, once you get to a certain level in sports betting, winning is not the issue. It's finding betting partners and accounts, and yeah, I mean, it is what it is.
So looking at the week 1 slate, you have a bunch of games like that are clearly separated from the rest. Like, I don't know how many people are going to be stacking up Cleveland, Carolina in the Baker revenge game with its 41.5 total. But you do have KC and Arizona, 53 total, Vegas and the Chargers with a 52 total, Green Bay and Minnesota with a 49 total. Those seem to be the 3 that really stick out, but and that's a weird one, too, that both the Chargers game and the Arizona game, it's not weird because they're both on the West Coast, but they're both in that late set of games. Would you imagine those are the 2 games that everyone goes and attacks?
So there's a really good opportunity, and I already noticed this in week 1, where some of the best games for DFS, at least on paper, are late, and you can start your lineups with really contrarian stuff. And if your contrarian stuff hits at 1 p.m., you chalkify your lineup at 4 p.m. and sail to the win. If your contrarian stuff misses at 1 p.m., you can get really off the board at 4 p.m. And so like that sets up really well for these slates where the 4 p.m. games are the best games. One thing that I would say is that early in the season, the lines will not be as sharp. In other words, the totals on these games early in the season will not be as strong and as solid as they are later in the year. There's just not enough data. There's so many more unknowns. There's way more guesswork going into how these lines are made. And so I try not to be a slave to the team totals and game totals early in the year, especially week 1, man. Like if I have a take like Colts Texans is going to go completely nuclear, which I think is at least possible. Like I'm willing to go with that take more than I am in week 9 or something. If Colts Texans had a 41 total, I'd be like, well, that doesn't seem great. But in week 1, yeah, I know it's only a 44 total, but they could be wrong. Like straight up. And so I'd encourage people to think more for themselves early in the year, if that makes sense.
That was my take on Philly and Detroit. That's at 46.5 right now. That feels like it could be 35-30 to me.
Yep. Love it.
And then I can just play Hurts. How do you stack Hurts? Like, what do you do with those guys? Like, obviously Devonta Smith, AJ Brown, Jalen Hurts, easy stack. But it does feel like I don't know like how the correlation actually ends up proving itself over the long term, because it feels like we've shifted our notions. Like everyone's so much sharper now than they used to be. That when we would do this show in 2017, it's like, yeah, play Matt Ryan and Julio Jones together, can't lose, and you couldn't lose. It was great. Now everyone's doing it, so they need to add more people. But when you have these running quarterbacks, like if Hurts is truly gonna hit his optimal upside, and maybe this is a better question for a large field tournament like the Millionaire Maker, like you said, that maybe you don't double stack him because you still need that other. You can't afford to get away with AJ Brown having 10 points and Devonta Smith having 15. You kind of need one of them to score 30 with Hurts and the other guy not to do anything if you're going to try to win like a Millionaire Maker type lineup.
Well, I mean, not only can you not have the situation you described, you can't have AJ Brown score 30 and Devonta Smith score 7 either. Like that, you're not going to win the Million Maker with that either. You need to hit in every single spot in your lineup. And yeah, the Russian quarterbacks like Jalen Hurts, like Fields, like Trey Lance, the guys like not Josh Allen, who obviously can throw, not Kyler, who obviously can throw, like more like the Lamar types, Hurts, Lance. Single stacks, I think, are for sure the most plus EVs. So I would pick your favorite pass catcher out of the Eagles and single stack there. And then I would try to get a Lion in there because, the only way Hurts is going to even throw the ball 30 times against the Lions is if they're forced into it. I don't think the Eagles want to throw the ball with Hurts that much. So yeah, I think single stacks for that kind of setup makes a ton of sense. And also when you use less players in your stack, let's say you only have a single stack and one bring back on the Lions, you have more spots in your lineup to do mini stacks. And so there's a lot of stuff that you can do. Let's say you like the, the Jaguars Commanders game. You could do a mini stack with like ETN and McLaurin and hope that they push each other also. And there's more room in your lineup when you only have a single stack. So yeah, I think single stacking Hurts in that spot would be what I would do.
I'm still trying to wrap my mind around how to deploy Debo in these situations. Like, what do you think that his role looks like? Let's say he's on the team. They can work out an extension, or they just say, screw it, you're playing. Like, you don't want to waste your service time. You want to become a free agent. You better get on the fucking field and you're going to play. How do they utilize him this year? And what's actually better for fantasy? Because I feel like, yeah, he scored all those touchdowns running the ball. That was great for fantasy. But there was just weeks where he wasn't used in the passing game, which could lead to 0-point games if he doesn't score the touchdown.
I mean, I take 0 Debo. I have 0 Debo in best ball, season long, whatever. I'm just completely out on Debo. I think if you look at what he did last year from an underlying metric perspective, it's so outrageous. I mean, he basically had a pathetically low average depth of target. In other words, all his passes were close to line of scrimmage, and he still was among the league leaders in yards per catch. Like, it's so insane. He basically was just like catching the ball short and going long and taking it long every time. I don't think that's that sustainable. He's an amazing player after the catch. I don't think that's sustainable. I also think Trey Lance will be way more vertical than Jimmy Garoppolo was, and I think that's better for Brandon Ayuk than it is Debo Samuel. I think him not playing running back is better for us in fantasy. I mean, a target is worth roughly 3 times as much as a carry in fantasy. So, yeah, I don't know, man. Like, add it all up. It's just I didn't play Debo enough last year. He obviously shoved it down my throat many, many times. But these guys who are so outlier on their efficiency are prone to burning me. And so I'm fine with betting against Debo, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Trying to look points per dollar if we start off with stacks and quarterbacks. What I'm seeing right now, and again, these projections are early. They're going to change once news gets updated. This is all at runthesims.com/Mayo. Points per dollar at quarterback right now. It's all the low 5,000 guys, obviously, as it's always going to be. We got like Daniel Jones, 5,000. Marcus Mariota, 5,200. Trubisky, 5,000 if he wins the job, which it looks like he should. Zach Wilson's $5,100. Fields and Lawrence are 56. Derek Carr is 59. He has no running potential, but that could be a shootout even against an improved Chargers defense. They can go back and forth down the field if points are going up. Do you have a preference of one of those guys that makes it easy to stack with? Because it just feels like it's Daniel Jones, especially with what you said now that the Giants offense is looking a little bit more predictable in a way, especially in the slot and with Kadarius Toney.
I had Daniel Jones, the guy who sticks out for me in that cheap punt quarterback range. I mean, the way they priced him is like insulting to Brian Daboll and all the skill on this offense. I mean, they added 2 really good offensive linemen in the last 2 years. I think Kadarius Toney is explosive and good. I still think Kenny Golladay can play. And Wendell, he's small, and I typically don't love these small guys. We've seen Daboll do it before with McKenzie and with Cole Beasley. And so you also have Saquon, who's really good catching the football also. And so, yeah, Daniel Jones for $5K to me was the most underpriced. The other guy that was cheap, and he's $6K, but he's $6K flat, was Trey Lance. Kind of stuck out to me as a guy who can and likely will run the ball 10, 12 times in a game. And that's obviously incredibly valuable at $6K.
If you go Jones, Toney, Robinson to start your lineups, you have $6,300 left per player. And I assume that the bring back is just Henry. That makes the most sense.
Yeah. Or I think Treylon Burks has flown under the radar. Henry is tough in stacks because
he doesn't
it eats up so much. When he plays well, it eats up so much clock. Like, he gets the ball in first down. He gets the ball in second down. That takes like literally a minute off the clock for him to do 2 runs. Whereas if you're throwing, drives me faster and more points are scored. So in my Titan stacks, I typically like to include AJ Brown in the past. I think Treylon Burks has gotten to a point in season long where everybody's out on Treylon Burks. And I think that's a mistake. I think his upside really outpaces where he goes right now in drafts. Like, people way overreacted to the asthma and all that other nonsense. So yeah, I think Treylon would be my preferred bring back there. But yeah, obviously big dog. If he breaks one of those 80-yard runs, like, it's just all bets are off.
I assume that everyone's going to go to Daniel Jones. Like, no matter what projection system that you're going to use, it's going to tell you that his price is wrong and that you should be doing your lineups with him. And is there anyone else down here that you think might be like a decent pivot stack too? Like, I don't know what to make of Atlanta whatsoever, whether Mariota is good or bad, probably bad, but it does seem like they have two options to throw to, that at least the stack with them is easy to figure out, that and it just, no one's going to use Atlanta. And I'm trying to wait. And this is what I'm trying to get better at this year for DraftKings, and I'll have more people on, continue to prod them with questions about it. Is like, how bad of a decision do you really think it is if you have Daniel Jones, let's say he's 15% owned, and the stack goes along with that, not necessarily all 15%, but some version of the Giants-Titans game. And then you get to the Saints-Falcons game, which isn't like super high points. It's 41.5. They're probably, the Saints should be good on defense. You know that they're likely going to want to run the ball, limit mistakes. That's how they're going to beat Atlanta pretty easily. But you have Mariota, who's probably like 1% owned. And Pitts will have his ownership. That's fine. London will have his ownership, but putting them all together is likely going to be like 15 times lower than it's going to be for Daniel Jones. When does that become the right decision?
Yeah. I think in the larger the field gets, the better the decision becomes. I think 41.5 in today's NFL, and I know I said that if you have a take, you can ignore it. 41.5 is like, man, in today's NFL, that is so low. I think what Mariota gives you compared to some of these other guys in 5K is a rushing upside. And I really think that you do need that when you're competing against guys like Lamar and Kyler and Hurts and Lance and Herbert and Mahomes. Like, how often can a pure pocket passer outscore those guys? They literally need to throw for like 350 yards and 4 touchdowns, because one of those guys that I mentioned, one of those rushers is going to have a big rushing game and a big throwing game, and it's going to be really hard to beat that. I think what you're getting at is, how does your upside interact with your ownership? And, you can think about that really cleanly in your head. Obviously, there's mathematical ways to do it, but what do you win when you win? Well, if you play Daniel Jones and you're right in a tournament, you don't win anything, because like Pat said, 15% of the field might have him. If you have Mariota and you're right, you really do have a chance to win and win big. And so that's the whole idea of playing guys at low ownership. I know, it's a hard thing for a lot of people to get their head around. I'll take a worse player at lower ownership, but yeah, for sure in tournaments, it's an absolute no-brainer. And I like what you said about Atlanta and clean stacking, because it's so valuable to know where the ball is going to go. If Mariota goes off, we know where it's going. Kyle Pitts and Drake London are both very, very good players. They have like total dust beyond that.
And they should be losing a lot of the time. But, you never know with some of these coaches. They may be like, what we need to do? Run more. And that way we can make the game closer, although we're losing by 37 points. Let's not throw. That'd be too much. It's the Pete Carroll strategy, essentially. But we haven't had some of these like very linear target trees, it feels like, in a really long time. Like, I so vividly remember Derek Carr, Amari Cooper, Michael Crabtree. That one was amazing. Emmanuel Sanders and Demaryius Thomas was another one for ages. Just like, I know where the ball is going if it's being thrown 60% of the time. Do you have any one, like you mentioned the Texans earlier with Collins and Cooks? Like, Cooks is probably going to get around like a 30% share. If you can figure out the other guy, like Davis Mills doesn't become like a half. He's not an attractive option. That neck is very long. That's never going to change. And I don't think there's a surgery for that. But if it's Brevin Jordan and Brandon Cooks, like, that could pay real dividends if you can find these concentrated trees. Maybe Minnesota is the place.
Yeah. Minnesota's been that way for a few years, I think, where like when Kirk Cousins went off, and Kirk Cousins has some huge games. When he goes off, you knew where it was going. It was Diggs and Thielen, and now it's Jefferson and Thielen. They don't throw that much to the tight end position. I think Carolina is going to be tight this year with DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson and CMC, but mostly DJ Moore and CMC, I think. And, the Bengals have 3 guys, but one of the reasons we were so on the Bengals last year is because they had such a low throw rate at running back and such a low throw rate at tight end. And yeah, they have 3 really good wide receivers, but they don't rotate them. They all play exclusively. And so, spots like that, I would encourage people to look at for sure, where it's all going to wide receivers. We know which wide receivers there are going to be on the field exclusively. And so, yeah, it's hugely valuable for sure.
Going to running back, taking a look at McCaffrey, I'm just trying to find the points per dollar. So you have Jonathan Taylor at $9,100. You have Christian McCaffrey at $85. I'm thinking about just like how I'm going to construct a lot of these lineups, and he's the 3rd most expensive running back. And presumably he should be, if there's any week that he's going to be healthy, it's going to be week 1 against Cleveland. That if he remains healthy all 18 weeks of the season, let's just throw that hypothetical out here. Is this the lowest price we're going to get him at all year?
Of course. And DraftKings does this on purpose. And we probably should have said this from the top. When you're trying to attract people to play on your platform and casual people that they're advertising to on national television, it is not appetizing to them to have to try to figure out which 3K number 4 wide receiver I can play so I can fit some stars in my lineup. People want to come in, they want to play stars, And so week 1 is always one of the highest scoring weeks for 2 reasons. Number 1, DraftKings makes the pricing very, very soft, just in a vacuum. And number 2, a whole lot's going to happen between now and week 1. They're going to open up even more values than there already are. And so it's going to be really high scoring. I think guys don't have to be cheap to be the best values on a slate. Christian McCaffrey is one of the best values on a slate at 8,500. I think Jonathan Taylor is one of the better values on the slate at 9,100. Yes, they are expensive. Some of the most expensive players on the slate, probably the 2 most expensive players on the slate. But that doesn't mean that they're not underpriced also, if you follow what I'm saying.
Well, if you dump both them in with the Daniel Jones stack, you still have $5,000 for your final 4 spots. And one of those is going to be a defense. So just you can up that just a little bit. We're getting there.
That's what I'm saying. So you're going to feel great about your lineup
as will
it's so
everyone.
Easy to make, as will everyone, because everyone's going to have like a total stars lineup. Exactly.
So I don't know how many people go Taylor and McCaffrey just because people get like really freaked out about, oh my God, I have to play this like $4,000 tight end. It's like, yeah, you should probably be playing like a mid-30s, low 30s tight end realistically, unless someone is such a tremendous value. But I'm even showing right now like McCaffrey as one of the better value, like a top 5 value per point on the slate. And Taylor's not far behind, but he is behind. And Derrick Henry feels like such an outlier to projections that you just kind of have to have whatever your take is on Derrick Henry, and you either just play him all the time or you never play him, because I very much doubt the projections are going to tell you ever to play Derrick Henry.
It's hard, when guys don't have a pass game role and, you don't know if their team is going to be winning. I mean, I'm not sure what the line is on that Giants Titans game. I can check it here. Yeah, Titans are 6.5, but it would not surprise me at all if the Giants got a lead in that game, and then you're in big trouble with Derrick Henry. I had really been not playing a lot of Derrick Henry in DFS, 2016, 17, 18. The last couple of years, I did start playing a lot more Derrick Henry under situations where A, I thought they were really likely to have a lead, and B, just accepting that some dudes are outliers. So like, it's hard to regress Derrick Henry to NFL averages because he just can't be regressed. He's like the most outrageous outlier ever. And so it's fine. I think this year the team is worse by a pretty substantial margin. He's also had the foot issue, which I know he came back from, but he still came off the foot issue. And so, yeah, I think there's a little bit more risk this year in Derrick Henry than normal. But, would it surprise me if he got literally 30 carries in this game against the Giants? Absolutely not.
Yeah, looking at the price per points in this like the mid 7s, the highest values per se. We'll see how it works out. I mean, I'm looking at Travis Etienne right now. He projects out the best per point for us, but his bust rate is still like 33% on that to score fewer than 7 points in this game. Yeah. Although his boom rate is 27% of scoring, way more than what his like 80th percentile projection is going to be. So it's him. DeAndre Swift is 68. David Montgomery is 6,000. Breece Hall is 55. And it does seem like that's going to kind of be the consensus of where the value plays are going to be, until, like you said, there's going to be an injury, and all of a sudden Pierce is like, oh yeah, Pierce is the guy. The coach comes out and says he's going to get 25 carries a game. It's like, oh, okay. Well, now he's like a free square. How do you handle the free squares when these injuries open up? Like the quote-unquote free squares? Because it really feels like if it's at running back, just fucking play the guys and figure it out somewhere else.
I think that's an important take. There's no such thing as a free square anywhere except for at running back. Free square at wide receiver. You have to be talented at wide receiver to produce in the NFL. Like, just because a star goes down and some guy is going to play all the snaps now does not mean that he will produce. I think at running back, all these guys are close to the same level of talent where they can all produce at the NFL level. It's so much more scheme-based, offensive line-based, game script-based. And so the running backs that are very, very owned, I am fine eating the chalk on in smaller field stuff to a certain extent. Once guys get to 50, 60, 70%, I think you can get away from that. But yeah, running backs who are 30 or 40% and are grossly underpriced, like, I'm playing that for sure.
Yeah, Pierce is 4,800. So they probably wouldn't even fall into that expectation anyway, because he's if it was very clearly the guy and he was only $4,800, obviously you're going to play him, but that's not going to be the case in week 1. They have like 5 other guys.
Right. And also DraftKings raised the running back floor last year to 4K minimum, and they've gone out of their way to price back up running backs through the whole year higher so that you don't get into a spot like we had in 2015, 2016, where running back would go down and you'd have like a literal like 3,400 starting running back and just like ruin the whole slate. And so they've certainly done better with that lately.
Between these four guys, Etienne, or Etienne, as I like to say, because it is a Francais name, DeAndre Swift, Montgomery, Brees Hall. Obviously, people like DeAndre Swift the best. That's why he's being drafted in season long and best ball, way higher. But I think he's a better DraftKings player than maybe he's a good best ball player as well. I don't know if I'd want to own DeAndre Swift in season long. It just feels like Dan Campbell is ripe with fuckery, and he will start using guys I've never heard of for no reason.
I think they have concerns about putting too much on DeAndre Swift's plate. I think that's very fair. But the counter to me on that would be Austin Eckler is not a full-time player either, and he's one of the best fantasy players. Alvin Kamara for many years was not a complete full-time player either, and he's one of the best players in fantasy. These running backs who have such a strong pass game role, and DeAndre Swift is incredible in the pass game, and then some share of the base role, and hopefully that base role includes goal line work. I don't care if they don't get the carries on 1st and 10 from their own 30. That is an absolutely worthless touch that honestly I'd rather them not get. And so to me, DeAndre Swift in the pass game and around the goal line is where he will, or at least around the red zone is where he will and should be used. And he's the archetype of the running back I want. I don't want running backs who get the 1st and 10 carry from the 30. Like, I just think that's like so worthless and so overrated. And that's where all the dead zone stuff comes in. And so, yeah, I'm on DeAndre Swift. He's very, very expensive now, to your point, like very, very, very expensive. There's not a lot of margin for error in season long on DeAndre Swift, but I do like him a lot. And I think he's grossly underpriced on DraftKings for week one.
Well, just looking at it on DraftKings in week one, he's going to be very popular because you're going to have these different tiers of options. It's like, well, I don't want to pay up for Taylor and Christian McCaffrey. I save so much money if I just go McCaffrey and DeAndre Swift. And it feels like a lot of ownership is going to point directly to there. The role that you talked about, receiving game, potential goal line work, the ability to be a good pass catcher, it feels like it's more inconsistent. But realistically, like when you look at their game logs and see what they produce, it's really not. Like Aaron Jones does a lot of the exact same things, and no one's going to play Aaron Jones.
I like Aaron. I have Aaron Jones on my list for week one, right next to DeAndre Swift. I think Aaron Jones is an awesome play. Also, yeah, you get more volatility when you get your points through the pass game late when you're not getting 20, 25 carries a game. But man, I mean, if I'm trying to win tournaments, if I'm trying to win best ball, if I'm trying to like really build monster weeks, these pass catching running backs are where you get the huge weeks from.
So taking a look at wide receivers very quickly. Oh, good God, man. I gotta talk to Justin about the best points. Yeah, guess who the best points per dollar receiver is? If you want to just take
Kadarius Toney.
He's second. That actually tracks to me. No, there's someone who's number one. He might see 17 targets in this game, and he might have -4 yards.
Juju Smith-Schuster.
It's Rondale Moore.
Oh, yeah. No, Rondale wasn't even on my list. I think Rondale should have a bigger role this year, but I don't trust this fake sharp idiot Cliff Kingsbury at all to do the right thing with Rondale Moore. So I think we're going to have so much money to use in week one that like taking risks on guys who have questionable roles is not going to end out being worth it in week one on DK.
I would feel better off taking a running back in a questionable role and being rewarded for being right about that. Like if people think that there's a timeshare with Brees Hall, for example, and I mean, there probably isn't, at least all reports are, but you start getting reports 3 weeks from now, it's like Michael Carter really making a charge here and is going to be the first and second down back and Hall's going to be eased in. Like I would still kind of take the risk that, well, maybe he's just the 3 down back. That makes more logical sense to me than a guy who, yeah, he can pay off value at $4,000, but unless he catches a big, it was like the Andy Isabella stuff all those years. Like, what was he really going to do for you?
Exactly. Yeah. And, I think Rondale Moore is an explosive player. I actually think his best position is running back, but I don't think they're going to use him there because Cliff just like can't do it. And it's so horizontal. I mean, Rondale Moore's average depth of target last year was like the worst in NFL history. I mean, all they threw it to him was behind the line of scrimmage and he would like struggle to get 4 or 5 yards on the bubble screen. It's just, Cliff is like my least favorite coach. If it wasn't for Kyler, Cliff would be Cliff would be out of the league. Kyler's just so good, he's saving him.
In order to like kind of like talk about the difference between these two guys, you have Rondale Moore's $4,000. Obviously, it's not the same price, but we mentioned Drake London. He's $5,000. I know he's going to play unless he's hurt. And who do they even fucking have on their team at this point at receiver? Besides,
well, I think you'll see some Olamide Zacchaeus.
Oh yeah, rock me, Dr. Zacchaeus. That's the guy. But like, he's supposed to be really good. I mean, I have no idea how to evaluate talent at an NFL level. He was drafted highly. People say he's very good. I'll believe the people who actually do the research on this stuff. So if he's out there in a game where they're like 7-point dogs, I don't feel like that role is confusing to me. As your point to Rondale Moore is like, who fucking knows? Like, he might get 17 targets, and that still might even be enough for him based on how they use him.
Yeah, he's not getting 17 targets. I mean, yeah. And to your point on Drake London, guys who have his draft capital, I believe he went 8th overall, like, they are productive in today's NFL almost immediately, like all the time. And so, yeah, if you think Mariota can play, and I have my doubts on Mariota, but if you think that he can play, Drake London at 5K is for sure fun. I prefer Juju or Michael Pittman in that range for a little bit more, but yeah, I mean, Drake London is certainly fine.
Well, what's going to happen with Michael Pittman? He's $5,500. He's playing the Texans. Everyone loves Michael Pittman. I've started to see the discussions now based on where he's going for like best ball in seasonal. It's like, well, I mean, I can draft Michael Pittman as the number 12 wide receiver overall, but that's probably his floor. Like, what is anyone just considering that Michael Pittman and let's say Matt Ryan just might not necessarily not have the best connection, but Matt Ryan just might not be any good?
Yeah, I think that's a point that's valid. I think Michael Pittman is very clearly good at football, and Matt Ryan has shown an ability to target these big wide receivers very successfully. So I like Pittman. I think that he's going slightly too high in season long, but I still like him if he gets to like the 4th round or so, which he rarely does, but I still like him in the 4th round. I'll say that at 5,500 against the Texans, I could see Michael Pittman being the most owned player on the slate. Like
100%.
It's just gonna fit so many lineup constructions that have JT or CMC. It's like, oh, I can have the number 1 receiver on a reasonably good Colts team in a good matchup at 5,500. Like, everybody's gonna click that.
Leave the graphic up, Paul, because we got an audible gasp from that statement from behind the camera from Paul. So Paul, I agree.
Range for like a casual like me. You got DeAndre Hopkins at 5,400.
He's suspended. He's suspended. He's not playing.
Oh, is he not playing?
No.
But like, I'm a casual. I don't know that.
Well, I mean that could be he'll have a big O next to his name on DraftKings by the time week 1 rolls around. But like, if let's say Michael Pittman is at $5,500, and just looking at the other names around him, let's say he's like 24% owned, probably a little bit less because it will take away. That's a great value for him. Any system will tell you that's a good value for the potential upside, and even the floor for Pittman at $5,500 is great. But you kind of hit on Ayuk. That's big play. Like, you're not 1v1. It's not like, hey, I think Ayuk's going to outscore Pittman, but he can. Bateman most definitely can, based on how his role could be had in this season. Then you have like Lazard. We don't really know what he's up to and how his role is going to be, but I mean, Aaron Rodgers has his favorites that maybe just peppers him with targets. We don't. Devonta Smith could be the one and not A.J. Brown. Unlikely, but there are guys that you could talk yourself into who could outscore Pittman in week 1, no problem, who, because Pittman's going to carry this huge ownership tag, are going to be like 3% owned.
So wide receivers at bloated ownership is like one of the easiest fades in large field tournaments. You know, like, wide receiver production is very, very, very volatile. And so wide receivers who get up over 25, 30% are almost always easy fades for me in tournaments. And I think some of the guys you mentioned stack really well. Like, I don't know that Trey Lance is going to have a huge game, but if he does, I think that Brandon Ayuk will be a big part of it. I think Lamar Jackson's going to have an awesome game. And if he does, almost certainly Bateman or Andrews will be a big part of it. And so, yeah, you know, I'll play Pittman in cash almost certainly, but in tournaments, I'm sure I won't end up playing Pittman, and I'll be looking to stack around that price range for sure.
And the reason that his ownership will get inflated, because no one's going to use Matt Ryan, that he becomes the one-off receiver that's the right price that fits every lineup, especially with the soft pricing.
Yeah, I just think that the cash guys, like, the best plays end up inflated. So even though nobody wants to play Matt Ryan or whatever, like, the cash team is probably going to involve JT and CMC and Pittman or something like that. And those guys just get naturally inflated in tournaments because A, a lot of people just put their cash team in tournaments, and B, like you said, like, all you have to do is pull up projections and people are just going to click those guys. And so, yeah, you know, like I talked about at the beginning, we know who's going to be inflated. And so we'll certainly have some low-owned guys at wide receiver who we think have similar to higher upside than Pittman in the same price range.
You excited to play a 20% Zach Ertz at tight end?
He wasn't even on my list. Well, how much is he?
4,400. But he's in that game. He's the cheap piece of that game for Arizona.
Yeah. God. I haven't made my official statement on my cheap tight end for week 1 yet. 4,400 is typically more than I like to pay.
Well,
I think Goddard is
Irv okay?
Goddard is there too.
Is Big Irv okay?
Irv is going to be questionable for week 1, but guys who break their thumb and are supposed to catch passes like 4 weeks later, that scares me, man. I think Mo Alley Cox, Jonnu, Bates, but there hasn't been a great cheap tight end yet. So I think a lot of people are going to end up in that Ertz, Goddard range, and certainly Pitts and Andrews and Kelsey will be in play also because people are going to have a lot of money.
Yeah, they should. Like Kyle Pitts should be. Like even at $5,700, he should be that way. Mark Andrews should be that way. Kelsey should be that way. Like sometimes the premium at tight end works out because there's only like 4 guys who are actually any good week to week that you buy yourself some peace of mind if you can afford it. But like Irv was the one that I had circled. Like if he's okay, just play him at $3,400.
Yeah.
But Brevin Jordan was actually the other one at 31. If he can win that job, and I'll just follow you to see who's running the first team reps with the Tech guy. I'm going to lose so much fucking money with the Texans. I can see it now. I'm going to talk myself into it every goddamn week. Like they're so cheap though. I can play McCaffrey and Jonathan Taylor, but I just stack Texans every week, and they'll score 3 points, and I'll feel like an idiot.
I think Brevin Jordan has a chance. He was reasonable at earning targets last year. I think Pharaoh Brown will play probably an annoying amount, like where he's in for some blocking stuff, and that kind of caps Brevin Jordan a little bit. But yeah, I'm okay with it, man. The price is certainly right. And as I said, I haven't made any teams yet. I think when you punt at tight end like that, and I do it in cash all the time, like you're hoping that Andrews and Kelsey and Pitts and Waller and Kittle or whoever else is on the slate, like they're capped out at 15 or 16 points. And then you're just printing with the cheap tight ends. It's not like a wide receiver where if you punt at wide receiver, one of these guys at the top is going to go for like 30 or 35. And that's so hard to overcome. You can overcome it at tight end because typically, and it wasn't always the case with Kelsey a couple years ago with Andrews last year, but if you can avoid like that big blow up game from them, punting is almost always right. So yeah, the tight end spot is always interesting on DraftKings, man. I think it changes a lot with cash and tournaments, but yeah, it's interesting for sure. And I hope that we get some punt that I feel good about, or maybe Irv gets back soon enough where we can play him. But yeah, I hope we get a punt.
Yeah, I feel like people will concede in cash right now. If I just had to guess, Ertz is probably option number 1 at 44. If they wanted to save some money, people love Cole Kmet, even though I think the Bears are going to be the worst team in football. So I don't know how much I want
possible
as a part of that. Now you can find alt line win total under 5.5 plus 150. It's out at all the places right now, just an alt win total. So I jumped on it. Mm-hmm. Now they're going to win like 8 games because of fucking special teams or something stupid. But yeah, I feel like I got my money in good. But what do you think the chances that Dan Arnold is actually the tight end in Jacksonville, not Evan Ingram?
I think we have that pretty split. I mean, Dan Arnold was fine last year. The reason that the Jacksonville tight end role was valuable last year is because A, they were on the field for almost every snap, and B, they threw the ball to the tight end a lot. I think we'll see some timeshare there. And so I actually didn't have Ingram or Arnold on my list. I think we'll see both of them play.
Not sure how it's really going to work out with Doug Peterson, but I would imagine that we're going to see a lot of 2 tight end sets, like based on the personnel that they currently have and maybe what he has historically done, and maybe even just try to hold up for a little bit. I know they upgraded the offensive line in Jacksonville, but just even give Lawrence that extra out of, hey, if the line can't hold it today, we have 2 big guys out here that can potentially protect you for a second.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I'm most excited about Travis Etienne, obviously, on the Jaguars. And then I also think Christian Kirk is going underdrafted in season long. Beyond that, man, I think I have to see it first. I think I have to see it first on Jacksonville beyond those 2 guys.
All right, they'll do it. Pat Mayo Experience. Join runthesims.com/Mayo. Get your discount. ETR5 at establishtherun.com. What's your guys' pod schedule right now for ETR stuff?
Yeah, we're doing at least 4 free pods a week right now. I think, like I said at the top, anyone who is on the fence about joining or whatever, the pods are totally free and you get to see and listen to what we're about. And I think our pod is really good. I'm obviously biased, but yeah, we'll be out with like 4 or so episodes a week, talking all kinds of important things for season long. And then we'll get into some DFS stuff as we get closer to week 1.
All right, Adam Levitan, follow him on Twitter, at Adam Levitan, establishedtherun.com. Obviously, you know that already, but hey, if you don't, now you know. You can follow me at the PME, sub to the newsletter down in the description, smash the like on the way out. That'll do it for me. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you next time.
Mayo experience! Experience!